Hi everybody, it's Kristen Smedley with the Thriving Blind Community, and I am putting together this message today because I don't know if it's that it's back to school time or because our little community here has been doing so well and our message is really getting out to so many people. There's probably a couple of different reasons. But for whatever the reasons are, it seems like I'm getting more calls than usual and more Facebook messages and email messages and whatnot from folks that have just received the blindness diagnosis or have, my video just went a little crazy, or have recently gotten the blindness diagnosis. And the thing I wanted to make this video about real quick is I keep getting the same question over and over again, and it's actually the #1 question that I get asked by newly diagnosed families. And to back up, my oldest son is 16 that's blind, and my second blind son is 13. So over the years, I've gotten a lot of questions, which the #1 is, when did you stop crying? And mostly that's followed by, when did you stop crying every single day? And I say that with a smile, but I am reaching out and giving you a big old hug if you are still in that boat of crying every single day. And I can't help but have a big smile and a ton of joy to be able to say to you, it gets so much better. It didn't at first. It sucked at first. It was awful at first. And if you know our story and my story, you know that that's because I did not know blind people. I didn't know the tools. I had no resources. Anytime you're thrown into something where you don't have any of that and it's brand new, it's scary. It's unfamiliar. You don't know what's going to happen. So it totally sucks, right? I should probably stop saying that because I tell my kids not to say that. But it did. And those of you that are down in the depths of it, know that is exactly what it is. But there were a couple of things that happened to me very early on that my blog is called I Believe in Miracles. And I can only say I don't find it as coincidence. I do find it as some interesting little miracles that came along our path. Now, for those cynics that say, oh, everything has a rhyme and a reason, I will say this. We're starving for information when our oldest, Michael, was first diagnosed way back in 2000. There was no Facebook yet. Can you imagine? There was no Twitter. We had like an email list group and the internet, which was like, oh, you get on the internet, some of that stuff. But anyway, we had the incredible opportunity to go to a family conference for our specific blindness. And I will never forget walking into that conference. And now I was at the point, Michael was only about a year old, so I was still crying every single day. I had no resources, no tools. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was up against. Every single day, devastated. Not proud, but it is what it is. That's where I was at. So I walked into this conference, right? And it's one of those typical, like, all the chairs were set up for a presentation that was going to happen. And I was looking for a seat, and my husband was getting Michael together and bringing him in, and I was finding us 3 seats. So I'm walking down the middle aisle, and on my right, remember, I had never met a blind person yet. On my right, I see a family, a mom, a dad, and a girl that I would say was probably 14 or 15, right? She's rocking back and forth in her chair, and she is clearly blind, just sitting kind of looking straight ahead, and she's barking at her parents as she's rocking. And she's yelling about, she sent, I think, the dad to go get her a drink, and he brought it back, and it wasn't what she exactly wanted. And then the mom, and she's yelling about this, yelling about that. Nobody told her to get up and do it herself. She was just mad. She was really mad that things weren't going her way. And I thought, okay. And then on my left, I'm looking at the left side of the room to see if there's a seat over there. And there's a mom and a kid, a boy that was probably 13. And they were in an argument, not like screaming and yelling argument, But they were in one of those, you know how you're out in public and like you're with your kids and you're trying to tell them something and you don't want to get everybody looking at you and you're screaming at them like this? That's the kind of argument they were in, right? And they're going back and forth. And as I was totally eavesdropping, whatever, as I'm listening, it turns out that they're having an argument about skateboarding in the hotel. And his point was it was perfectly acceptable for him to be skateboarding in the hallways. And her point was it's perfectly unacceptable. And they're both driving their points home. But the funny thing was, the interesting thing was, they weren't talking about blindness. It wasn't a thing that it was inappropriate because you can't see. It was simply a mom having a conversation with her teen that was being pig-headed and whatever, like a typical family conversation, right? So I'm looking back and forth and I thought, I don't know nothing from nothing. And this is the biggest challenge of my life and I don't know how to get up and out of it. However, I'm going to do everything I can to have that argument of the skateboard with my son when he's 13 and not have him barking at me that I didn't get him the right beverage, right? So that was my first kind of thrown into the most, I look at it now as one of the biggest blessings in my life that I got to be involved in those two family situations and started shifting, just an itsy bitsy shift in my perspective of how I wanted this life to go. Now, at that point, I had no idea how I was going to get to the point that that mom was at with comfort and ease and everything that she was with her son's blindness at that point. But I knew I was going to open my eyes and ears to figure out how to get there. And the very next hour, maybe, there were two young guys in their 20s that also have the blindness that my sons have, and they talked about their struggles getting into, one was getting into medical school and one was up on Capitol Hill, but they talked about real struggles and they talked about all of their joys and success. It was incredible. So then, as if all that wasn't enough, there was also a parent session where a mom was talking about, she was a mom of one of the guys that was talking, and she talked about all the different things that came their way in terms of challenges and success and what to look out for and experiences. And I'll never forget raising my hand, and I simply wanted to know, after all of her beautiful information, all I could focus in on was, when did she stop crying every single day? And she had the greatest advice for me. And she said, oh, there's going to be a day where you realize you go through half the day and you didn't think about it. And then you'll make it through an entire day and you didn't think about it and end up in tears. And then you'll go a week, and then you go a month. And she said, every now and again, there's a trigger that might jolt you for a second. But all in all, you start to realize that life is amazing, and it's only once in a while that you hone in on the setbacks or the challenges of blindness. And sure enough, just this past weekend, I had one of those moments. You know, people will likely call me a radical optimist. I mean, I tend to be, like the glass isn't just half full. It's half full with amazingness, and let's just not pay attention to the potential of that it's not half full, right? So I can tend to be a radical optimist. And I'm very lucky to have a nice foundation in faith. So I can look for good in things and whatnot. But I still, when Michael was first diagnosed, I was on the floor for a long time. But to have that warning, that's probably not the right word for it, but the heads up, let's go with that. To have that heads up from that mom that was raising this incredible kid that happens to have a vision issue was so great, because you know what? Just the other day, it's been a while since I had one of these moments, but just the other day I was starting the weekend and trying to squeeze in a workout, and I was trying to stay motivated to finish my push-ups, right? And I was getting sidetracked because I hate them, and opened my Facebook news feed. And sure enough, there's a picture of a good friend of mine, and her kids were at the football game, and a picture of the kids in the car, the ones driving now, And it just was a snapshot of a life that I thought that maybe mine would be and isn't quite that. And for the first time in a long time, I had a moment of, man, just that like grabbing at a section of your heart, right? And for the first time, probably in forever, I actually just let that moment, I just let it be what it was. Instead of going, oh, let me think of all the wonderful things, and let me think of, no, I just let that moment be what it was, and then kind of talked myself through it. It was fantastic. And what I was able to do was honor that and say, yeah, you know, okay, we haven't had our chance to go to the DMV for the driver's license, and no, I can't just drop him off at a football stadium, you know, and everything, you know, he's going to easily find everybody and know what's going on. However, he's been able to pursue his passions and interests and talents and everything that we just had to step back and let him come into his own greatness and figure out his own way, because our story for him, we didn't know what that story for him was going to be. I didn't go into it with a preconceived story of this is how your life goes in middle school and in high school, and this is how all the pieces fall into place. We had to explore lots of different options and see how we could make them work. So here's my advice to you. You know, everybody asks me how I can keep smiling and have so much energy and joy on this journey. I did not start here. Make no mistake, you know, no holds barred. I did not start like this. So if you're one of those people that just got the diagnosis or recently did or got it a while ago and you're still kind of stuck, I mean, I was stuck on the floor. I just could not get up. I couldn't get up and out of it. But the way that I did was by filling, you know, they say filling your toolbox. There's a lot of tools that I needed for my own personality. And I will say that one of the biggest ones, I'll give you the 3 biggest ones to help you start on a journey of thriving instead of just trying to survive every day. The first thing is gratitude. I learned, and it's been the biggest benefit in my life, I have learned to, when I get in those moments of he can't get his driver's license, or gosh, another IEP meeting to try to make this stuff work, or they forgot the bus the other day for the Braille session. You know, when I get into those oh poor me moments, I immediately will go and look for, but what are all the pluses? You know, Michael calls them perks. And what are all the bonuses and the blessings that have come to us on this journey? I mean, the people we've met and the things my guys have been able to do and the way they're blowing the roof off of people's conceptions of what blind folks can do is amazing, completely amazing. So my advice would be explore your child's gifts and talents and passion and see what makes them tick. And then go with that. Let them create the story as you guide them along the way, and be grateful for all of those benefits, because you will start seeing so many benefits to their life, and you'll start seeing them for who they are instead of seeing that blindness first. It took me a long time. I will warn you. It did take me a long time to make that full-on switch, but you'll get there. And the second thing that is so important is they need to have the tools that they need. You know, they can't go through a school day, you know, and my guys are middle school and high school. They can't be in school stressed out about the fact that they're so slow in Braille, or they have to make the print so big that, you know, all this stress about all of that. They had to get really good with blind tools, and they had to do it early. And if you're behind on that, well, today's the day to start to get them caught up. Those tools, the mobility lessons, you know, we do urban travel where they go into the city and learn all the SEPTA, well, we're in Pennsylvania, we call it SEPTA, all the transit systems. But Braille technology, oh my gosh, technology. Get in there and figure out what you can do to get more tools in their hands to make their day go as fast and easy as possible at school, or if they're older and they're at work. Tools are essential. They need to know them. You just have to get over it. You don't like to say the word Braille because it makes you want to throw up? You have to get over it. I had to get over it. If that's the best tool for them, you got to use it. And then my third thing that these are probably all equally important, but underlying in everything with gratitude and tools and all that is you have to switch to an expectation that they are going to thrive and come into their greatness, and they are going to have the most wonderful lives. Because if all you're going to expect is challenge and hardship and isolation, I can almost guarantee you that your child is going to have all of that. But if you start to switch to an expectation that they are going to thrive, you can even expect that it's going to be challenging. You can have that expectation. You can have a high expectation it's going to be challenging. It is. But if you have a high expectation for their life, guess what? They're going to have a high expectation for their life. And when you have really high expectations, it's amazing. Then you start getting motivated to, how do you make all of that happen? How do you make all the success come their way? You get the tools. You start to get really grateful for the folks that are on your journey that are helpful and connect you to the right things, which then promotes even more things to be grateful for and more tools come your way. So that was a really long roundabout way to say, I fully, believe me, I am with you on that couch and that floor. I was there for a long time, and I can guarantee you if you stay there, it's going to get worse. It is so hard to pick yourself up when there's a challenge like this that you didn't plan for. But the interesting thing is, think about this. My guys are 16 and 13. I would actually struggle with showing them this video and having a full-on conversation with them, admitting that how much I struggled, because they don't see this as a huge struggle. Does it suck sometimes? Yes, it does. Michael's friends all got their licenses and he couldn't. That set him back a little bit, sure. But you know what? There's times when they're on a level playing field and, you know, they all study for the test and he bombs it and can't figure out why. You know, he totally missed something. So, you know, life is going to have its crap. What are you going to do? My guys just don't see this as, they do not see their blindness as a reason for me to be sitting on the floor. And I can guarantee you that even if your child is 6 months, can't communicate yet, however little they are, I guarantee you that they're not going to want you sitting on the couch, sitting on the floor, being so upset by this and not getting out there and finding them the tools and resources that they need. And it is, I said, it's hard, but you'll get there. And we will work as much as we can here at Thriving Blind to get all the resources here in one place and share links with great folks that we know in the field that can answer questions and get you the tools and everything that you need to move from surviving each day to thriving with an incredible life with the blind folks that are on your journey. So thank you so much for tuning in. Look for more of our videos coming soon and all the resources that we have coming your way. And together we'll all be Thriving Blind.